Have you ever met someone who's basically a walking dictionary in a foreign language? They ace every grammar test, know all the rules, but the second you try to have a simple, real-life chat with them, they kind of freeze up. Well, it's a super common problem, and in this explainer, we're going to dive into some fascinating research that shows exactly why this happens, and what our textbooks might be getting totally wrong about how we learn to actually talk to each other.
Okay, so let's frame this whole thing as a puzzle. I like to call it the awkward expert puzzle. And trust me, if you've ever tried to learn a new language, this is going to feel very familiar.
So here's the core of the puzzle, right? What is the deal here? You've memorized the vocabulary, you understand the sentence structure, you've put in all the work. So why is it that when you're finally face-to-face with a native speaker, it can feel like you've got the wrong script for the play?
And look, this isn't just a personal frustration. This is a huge challenge for entire educational systems all over the world. Take Japan's Ministry of Education, for example. Their official goal is for students to not just understand English on paper, but to be able to use it effectively. And yet, the puzzle remains.
So what are we missing? What's the missing piece? Well, it turns out there's this kind of secret code to conversation that often gets completely left out of the lesson plan. And that's what we're going to unlock right now.
That secret code has a name. It's a field of study called pragmatics. And it's really all about the unwritten rules of communication. It's not just about what words you use, but how you use them, why you're using them, and who you're talking to. It's the critical difference between just knowing a word and knowing how to use it in the real world.
Here's a pretty simple way to think about it. If grammar and all your vocabulary words are the individual notes on a page of sheet music, then pragmatics is the rhythm, the emotion, the soul that a musician brings to turn those dots on a page into actual music. Without it, all you have is a technical exercise.
So what this really all boils down to is that true language skill, what experts call communicative competence, is kind of like a three-legged stool. You need the grammar, sure, that's one leg. You need to understand the social rules, that's like two. But you absolutely need that third leg, pragmatic competence. That's what lets you actually use the language. Without it, the whole stool just tips right over. This brings us to a really fascinating 2025 study by Chi Kawashima. She basically went on a detective mission looking for this secret code in the one place most students get all their information, their textbooks.
So the investigation zeroed in on two of the most popular, most recently revised English textbook series used in Japanese high schools, VISTA and ALL ABOARD. The thinking was, if pragmatics was being taught anywhere, it had to be in these, right?
So, what did the investigation turn up? Well, the findings are pretty eye-opening, to say the least. Let's take a look at the actual data. Okay, just take a look at these numbers. The study meticulously counted every single time some element of pragmatics was taught. In the VISTA series, they found 45 instances. In the ALL ABOARD series, just 15. I mean, that is a massive gap right from the get-go. This chart really just drives the point home. You can see the difference so clearly. Just imagine two students in classrooms right next door to each other. One is getting literally 3 times the instruction on this absolutely vital skill as the other one. That is a huge difference in how they're learning. So, this brings us to the first major finding. What is actually being taught is completely inconsistent. If you're a student who happens to get the ALL ABOARD textbook, you are getting only a third of the exposure to these real-world conversational skills as your friend using VISTA. But listen, the problem isn't just about how much is being taught, it's also about how it's being taught. And that's the second big finding from the study. The methods are often really mechanical. The most common exercise was something called a cloze dialogue, which is basically just a fancy term for a fill-in-the-blank conversation.
The study itself calls this a mechanical operation. You see, it's about finding the right puzzle piece to fit a hole, not about actually having a real, dynamic conversation. It just doesn't prepare you for the beautiful, unpredictable messiness of human interaction.
And this brings us to the absolute crucial issue of context. While the VISTA series at least tried to show who was speaking to whom, a friend, a teacher, whatever, the ALL ABOARD series offered no context at all. Zero. That's kind of like learning the moves of a chess piece without ever seeing the chessboard.
And this is maybe the most damning piece of evidence right here. Even in the VISTA series, where they did provide context, it didn't seem to matter. The textbook taught students to use the exact same level of politeness with a teacher as they would with their best friend. I mean, come on. That is the very definition of pragmatic failure. You have the words, but you have no idea how to use them appropriately.
So if the textbooks are failing our students this badly, what's the solution? Well, the study offers a really clear and powerful answer, and it might not be what you're expecting.
The final verdict is just unavoidable. Textbooks, as they're designed right now, are simply not enough to teach the dynamic, context-rich skill of real-world communication. They just can't do it on their own.
So let's just break down this formula for failure one more time. First, the content is limited and totally inconsistent. Second, the practice exercises are robotic, not communicative. And third, that all important context is either completely missing or just flat out ignored. And that is how we end up with the awkward expert.
But the study doesn't just end on a downer note. The key, it argues, isn't to just throw out the textbooks. No, it's to empower our teachers. They are the ones on the front lines, the ones who can bridge this gap by bringing their own knowledge, their own insights, and their own real-world experience into the classroom.
And this leaves us with a much bigger question that goes way beyond just learning a language. Whether it's teaching science or history or art, how do we make sure we're giving students not just the facts, but the context, that rich, complex world that gives those facts their true meaning? It's definitely something to think about.